the time is now here at 5:30. We will call the meeting to order. Mr. Becker, would you like to do attendance, please?
Yes, Ms. Ulrich.
Here.
Mr. Unger.
Here.
Mr. Waller.
Here.
Mr. McElravy. Here. Mr. Miller. Here. Mr. Morvick. Here. And I myself am here.
All right. You've been provided in the via email by Mr. Miller the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any motions with regards to those minutes?
I motion that we would approve the minutes that were provided.
And I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns with regard to those minutes?
None at this time.
None for me?
All right, Mr. Becker, we'll go ahead and call the vote then.
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes?
Mr. McElravy. Yes. Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Morvick.
Yes.
And I vote yes, and I have these to sign at the end.
Okay. So that passes. Next, we have a number of items under new business. Now, I don't know who's going to be, Mr. Miller, are you going to be providing an intro to this for us?
Yes, that's
All right, so let's go first to the item report on the Sears operating expenses.
all right. So we have, a quick reminder, we have an operating agreement with the Port Authority, and they are managing the property for us on our behalf. And so in your packet, there are invoices for their time and services at $1,000 per month. And so those have been provided. From the purchase date to the end of 2023, there were $40,405.64 in expenses and $86,868.77 in revenue. So the rollover balance held by the port is currently $46,463.13. So we had revenue of closing cost revenues, and then the revenue from Spirit Halloween. So that's our revenue in, and then expenses going out. Utilities average about $11,400 a month for October through December. So
Are there any questions with regard to that item?
So just to look at this, it says $56,968. That was overage after we paid the closing cost and the sales commission and all that. That was what was left over.
that is correct.
Okay, so that and the other figure of $29,900 from the Spirit Halloween lease.
That is right.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that update. Item B.
Item B, discussion and direction we are seeking as we continuing this conversation on utilities at Sears. So as you will note that the majority of the expense at the building at this point are utilities. We have been working closely with the port to try to keep those as low as possible. And one of the things that we've done is turned off one of the units that's providing heat. The other one is sufficient by itself, and so we've minimized that. With even with that, it's still higher than we want. We're just bleeding cash, and there's no need to do that. So as we discussed last meeting, we brought in Ron Schaus from the Port Authority, and then Captain Mark Walsh from Colerain Township Fire Department, and they both believe that we would not be risking any particular problems or damages by shutting off the utilities, draining the pipes so that there wouldn't be any freezing, and we would minimize our expenses at that point. And so I circled back to the Port Authority and asked them, I think, let's see if it's on this item. I guess we'll just roll that into item C as well, both of these together. So one of the questions that the board did ask at the last meeting was how our insurance would potentially be affected by eliminating fire suppression. And that would be by the draining of the pipes and turning off everything. So number one, with no utilities, you've eliminated almost all likelihood of internal combustible fire happening on its own, because there isn't anything that can start that. You'd still have that risk of somebody breaking in and causing vandalism and causing a fire, something like that. But nonetheless, if we did shut all that down, the insurance company that we are covered by with the Port Authority, which we requested when they entered into a holding agreement with us, they said that our coverage is under their policy for general liability, and that covers all your slip, trip, and falls, and it would cover anything that happened on our property that damages anybody next door. So that insurance is covered, and there would be no change to the cost if we shut down all the utilities and turned off the fire suppression.
Is there a date you have in mind to do this?
We do not have a date at this point. I think we're still working through what I have made a request from the Port Authority to look at every option that we need to understand and what the costs might be. You know, MSD and Waterworks, they always have some kind of
Shut-off fee.
base. They have a base
it's
charge.
base charge, right.
So you can not use a drop of water and still
Right.
get a bill.
Do you know what that amount is?
No, they're researching that. They haven't got back to us on that.
And what about the wall? Before you shut off the utilities, would you put the wall up first?
Yes.
Okay, so, and we have,
They've gone out to bid. He thought he was going to have me that number
Okay.
today, but
they didn't have the bids, but, okay,
so
okay.
he does have that out. It's probably about a 2-day, I think.
Do we have a
2-day job.
ballpark on that?
He did not give me
Okay.
anything.
And that would
Probably
be a
maybe a couple $1,000, I think.
cinder block wall, right?
I think they're
No,
talking drywall.
No, for that one, it's steel studs and
Okay.
I believe it was 1/2-inch
Yeah,
drywall. That's what he said. It's you construct it for a 1-hour rating, fire rating.
okay.
So that's
So it concerns me, and I'm for this with an asterisk, because what I still don't know is what are the unintended consequences? What's the worst case scenario? I guess it would be, God forbid, if somebody went in and broke in and started a fire, we would have an issue. But that would be insured, and there's no physical bodies in there that would.
right. There's very little in that can burn.
Basically concrete, is it not?
It's
It is.
a concrete building.
Somebody moving in there and starting a fire.
Well, when nobody's moving in.
I mean,
'cause we're
somebody
there
getting in there
often
and,
enough. Yeah.
and
I mean, there's to burn is.
just vandalism.
Sure, it's just vandals, teens that are just looking to cause trouble. That can happen anytime,
Might
anywhere.
not be teens, could be anybody.
Okay.
And the question's been brought up to me, and I guess this isn't this time of year question, but mold.
Okay, so I did inquire about that as well. On a short-term basis, and this is according to the Port Authority, he's demoed a couple hundred buildings, and this is his experience. He said that on a short-term basis, if everything follows through like we're hoping with the grant announcements in April, going out to RFP in the summer, start the demolition sometime late summer, there isn't time for any of those kind of problems. If there was a delay and we had to work through maybe another grant cycle, his only concern was keeping some air flowing, and there are some handlers that,
Right.
even though we've drained the pipes and eliminated fire suppression, we can still circulate some air, and that would address those mold issues.
So the port, I'm under the impression that they come, every 2 weeks?
I think he's doing every week.
Okay.
We're all driving over there.
Is he doing a physical walkthrough?
Yes.
Okay. I just am trying to think, so I'm trying to think like a card counter here. How do I reduce my odds incrementally of something bad happening? And I think more walkthroughs would be one solution. But I also wonder if either more police runs or a guard during certain hours. I mean, I think we have a certain responsibility to the rest of the mall to be good stewards. I wonder if that's something that we should think about or talk about, or.
Well, the mall does have security of its own. Now, again, if we build a wall and we shut ourselves off, It's not like they're going to be walking inside our store. Okay, we understand that. I think to the degree that somebody has found or created outside access off the parking garage. All right, so we have, there are windows in a few places around that building. They can break in. I get it. So I'm not sure you can eliminate all of your risk.
No, I know we
There's
can't
always
eliminate.
There's always a cost that's going to be associated with that, and so we just have to weigh that. How much risk is there versus what would it cost us to pay if we felt like we needed to do that?
Yeah, I know that we can't eliminate it. I guess my question is, it seems to me that any threats are going to be external. There's just not going to be internal threats. Is there a way we can reduce the external threats in a cost-effective manner? Maybe that means that we have more walkthroughs per week. Maybe not, but the port is only contracted for a certain amount, but maybe we have, I don't know, police walkthrough or fire walkthrough or something. I just, and I don't have an answer to my question.
And if I might ask, not to interrupt you, so specifically the threats that you're concerned about are what?
External threats to the building itself.
Okay, so it's
getting in the building and
people
doing
getting
something bad.
Yep.
But wouldn't there be a sign that the windows were broken if there was surveillance? If the police
Right.
stopped every 2 hours, just drove past and checked the windows?
And I don't believe if the water or electric was on, that would enhance.
You're right.
Or it's not going to make a difference. They're not, if the water's or electric's on or not, if they're going to break in, they're going to break in. And if they start a fire, there's really nothing to burn. It's a concrete shell. All the racks and shelves and everything out. I mean, it would not be a massive fire.
There are a few clothing racks that are still in there that are made out of
Metal.
Glued together sawdust.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not like it's going to be a catastrophe.
Your ceiling tiles may burn, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is that I'm looking for ways to reduce those external threats.
Right.
And it may not even be fire, it may be somebody moving in there.
Yeah, the homeless.
And it's just, and
We could ask,
Kathy's right too, this would have happened whether there's
Utilities or
Right.
not.
utilities or not.
we could ask Ed how many runs they do through the external part of the mall every day. I'm sure there's a police car going through the mall sometime during the day. And then the security officers there from 9 in the morning till walking.
Yeah, I don't know what their hours are.
I don't know what their,
Probably operating hours.
yeah, I mean, Monday through Friday,
Probably 10 to 8. is
10 to
what my
8.
guess is.
Okay.
And that's something maybe you can get back to us
Yeah, we
on.
can make sure that,
So if we turn off the electric, I've gone up there at night just to see what it looks like. I think Sears was compelled to maintain a lit, secured parking lot, and those lights probably run through the panel at Sears. If we turn off the electric, is the west half of the Northgate Mall parking lot going to go dark?
Good question. We will.
Because I
we'll
think
look
we
at
need
that.
to have lights on there.
We'll include that in our discussion with the Port Authority,
okay.
and we'll get back to you with
And
an
then
answer on
you,
that.
thank you for communicating with the insurance company. At our last meeting, we had discussed getting something from them in writing. So do you have something in writing from them?
There were emails that were just going back and forth, so I have an email that specifically says there is no cost. You have general liability coverage. So
Through the port. I would still contend that if something happens there, we're going to be named as an additional defendant.
no doubt, that's just the way the
Right.
legal system works today.
And we have insurance to cover that.
Yes.
And what, is that our directors and operators insurance, or?
It's the GL that's provided through the Port Authority. So, well, Mr. McElravy, would D&O protect them if they're named individually?
So, Mr. Chair, the directors and officers insurance would cover just that, the directors and officers of this organization. The insurance that's in force for this property is the general liability policy that is held by the land bank. If a party were to sue the township, then the township's liability coverage would cover that. If someone were to sue the C.I.C., we're talking about assets of $70,000. I mean, there's just not that much to go get. So the risk exposure is relatively limited. But we certainly could explore other avenues to try to mitigate that risk more. I will share that it's challenging to secure insurance coverage for a piece of property that you don't own.
I was just going to bring that up, yeah, because in the state of Ohio, only one insurance policy is going to be paid if there's any damage. It's going to be the one that is the owner of the property. We could have another policy, but it's going to be the person in title, correct?
Well,
I know that's how residential works. I'm not sure about commercial and townships, but I didn't know, like you were saying, what insurance policy do we have? But if they have it, they're still entitled, so.
Well, as we're members of, the three of us are members of the CIC board, I'm pretty confident we're going to get named. And I just want to make sure.
Oh, you're talking about-
if
okay.
you can,
I
if
thought
you
you
can
were talking about
figure out a way to
vandalism now.
protect us in that scenario, I'm all about it, but that's why I'm
thinking
looking for
hazard
something
insurance,
in
you're
writing.
thinking, okay, I'm thinking a different type of insurance.
Liability insurance.
Liability,
If
I'm thinking
something
hazard,
happens and
okay.
Somebody comes after us for a couple $1 million.
I misunderstood the context of
Me
your
too,
question.
I misunderstood your context.
I assume, and we certainly can confirm this, but I assume that if anyone were to try to bring a claim against any of the members of this board as individuals, that the directors and officers insurance would apply.
Okay, that's what,
We can confirm that.
Again, it's my understanding that the risks associated, for the most part, based on the electric being out, absent the parking lot issue, they're the same risks whether the electricity's on or off.
I agree.
Somebody could bring in stuff into the building, have their fire, whatever, whether the electricity or the water is on in the building.
Vacant buildings just seem to have a way of having fires in them.
Well, it's been vacant for how many years? Without
And
fires?
somebody got in there and discharged a bunch of fire
Right,
extinguishers, so
There wasn't a fire.
I'm just, I
Maybe
wouldn't.
They were putting the fire out with the
If
fire.
if I didn't have car insurance, my car would not leave the driveway. I mean, I'm just
Right,
big on
and-
making sure that
And
all of
that's
our
what we've
risks are
ensured,
covered.
is that everything's covered.
Right.
And I would, I guess, presume that the same coverage that you currently enjoy for your role as a township trustee is covered similarly to everything that's associated with the CIC.
However, we have been named personally in lawsuits before.
Right. And it's always going to happen.
Right. I mean, personally, not in our capacity as a trustee, but in our capacity as an individual. And I think it took probably 2.5 years to get that fixed. Okay. So I think one of the big questions Mr. Unger brought up is, we all know that that's a big parking lot in the back. And if it's really dark with no lights, that's going to be a magnet for some people maybe doing up to stuff that they shouldn't be doing, so we need to check on the lights.
Yep, got that.
And I would appreciate, again, and this isn't related at all to the Duke Energy or not, if we talk to other communities that have had this too, what have they done to minimize our risk? We can spend all kinds of money and minimize risk, but I'm looking for kind of a cost-reward
Okay.
analysis if we can, I haven't been over there to see how the doors are closed. I mean, we can't cover everything, but I'd like to minimize any kind of risk. All right, are there any more, is there any more discussion on this item?
Would that be item C that we're talking about, so you want to go to item D?
Yeah, this is B and C together, kind of, which means we would go to D.
Right, on D, which is notification to, I would like you to ask them in writing, hey, what do you guys think if we turn the utilities off, and see what they respond with? If they say that's fine, or they say don't do it, we would need to know that in writing.
Okay.
I'm sure they're gonna miss the free heat they've been getting all
Right,
around.
I think the answer is gonna be, no, you shouldn't do it. So I'd like to know before we ask where we stand legally on this, with regard to,
If there's something in the bylaws that we had to keep. on
if
that
we have to
missed.
keep it,
Right.
yeah. I mean, we're notifying them, in my view, as a courtesy.
Right.
To be.
Right, to be good neighbors.
Be good neighbors.
Right.
But courtesy only goes so far.
I think Mr. Weckbach was going to engage a local law firm to kind of really give a good hard read of the covenant and see exactly
Right.
what it's called for in that situation. Does that
Yes.
sound right?
Yes, I talked to him about that about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I think we're moving towards that. All right,
Yeah, so to sum it up, I just want to make sure that as one person, have all the liability issues covered so that we don't put the township or the CIC in a bad spot.
Right. I agree.
all right. Any more comments with regard to the notification to Northgate Mall?
Nope.
I do have a question. I know that it seems that the movie, the cinema, I guess the utilities are still on in there by a different owner. So if that, have you been in communication with those folks at all?
I have contacted the brokerage firm that's offering it for sale, and that's been the only contact. It's usually on the level of what kind of movement are you having?
Right.
Conversations. It hasn't been on operations. Somebody was in there.
I mean, if they shut off theirs, or is their section of the parking lot lights gonna go off?
Yeah.
Situations, questions like that.
Yeah. Again, just assuming that the operating agreement is going to address common areas, and that parking lot is going to be maintained by the mall management, and we have a relationship with them, under contract as to how and why those lights would be on. But
I don't know if they run through those three big transformers, and there's a panel back on the southwest side of the Sears building, those three big transformers back there, and yeah, but
Yeah,
I want to keep
our
the,
expectation would be that we would not do a total disconnect, just,
it sounds like if you turn off the heat, that would,
right, if you turn the breakers off.
Right.
There's
But-
no
but it-
power going
Right.
out.
but it's supposed to be 18 degrees this weekend, so we certainly want to keep it on.
Right,
So,
right, it is. It's just at a temperature that's reasonable enough to keep it from freezing.
Like 55?
I think it may be 60.
Oh.
It was what Ron suggested.
Okay, 60?
and I guess in the bigger picture of things, we, and it's not tonight, but are we going to definitely demolish the building?
That's my intents and parts of it.
If we are, then it's probably, more planning to continue on this path and shut off the utilities. If there's a chance that that building is going to become part of something new and you shut off the utilities, then you get into a bunch of other, right now, we know what it's going to cost to keep the building as is, which is whatever your figure is, $150 a year. That's a ton of money, but if we don't get this grant in April, there's just, once we get the grant, I think we have once we find out if we're getting it, I think we have a lot better direction as to what we're going to do, because if we don't get it, then we've got a whole other set of things to consider.
Right.
So,
Our partnership with the port, I think, is going to be advantageous to us, having good success on that.
So without showing your hand too much on this, I probably should just ask you this offline, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you have a decent relationship with the broker that actually holds the listing for the cinema?
I do.
Okay. And he understands that we have a portion of that, and that,
He's actually the broker we worked with on the purchase of Sears.
Okay.
Yep, same
What-
company.
if you know offhand, what's the list?
$2 million.
Okay, so how long were they going to put that then until they?
He did not disclose that to me.
Never do that.
I'll just comment, I have no intention of buying the cinema.
No, I don't either. I think that we have, hopefully, if you have a good relationship with the broker, we have an opportunity to cooperate with interested parties in the cinema. I don't want the cinema. From what I understand, it's too hard with the, yeah.
Very difficult to redevelop into
Right.
anything else.
Right. But I certainly, I would like to try whatever leverage we can to get somebody in there. And now, since we are a member, we are part of that agreement. We have
Seat at the table.
Yeah, we have a seat at the table as part of the master agreement, yeah. Right. All right, are there any other questions or comments for the good of the cause?
No, did your student have any comments, Mr. Wallert?
He said he thinks he's fine, so.
Adam, did you have any questions, sir? Okay.
All right, I received a couple emails during the course of the week, these last two CIC meetings. We've not had comment by the audience because we simply just haven't had room for it. This has been some technical stuff about, I never thought it would be technical stuff about just turning the electric off, but it has been, and we're certainly under time constraints. So I think that we're fine adding that again on the next one because we're at the point now where we're through the technical stuff, unless the next one's a bunch of technical stuff. But I'll point out that citizens can always contact any three of us or any of the members of the CIC, and any comments can be made during open comment on citizen comment as well.
They're always welcome to submit written comments as well,
Right.
or questions.
It's not something that we're looking to not get comments. It's like, I want to make sure we get this right on the Duke thing because there's a lot at stake. So we will return that next.
I just make one final comment to the two young men that are here to witness this meeting. You can find all these bills and the agenda for this meeting online. The three of us or the seven of us can look at this on our computers, and if you need that for whatever your project is, it's right there for you, all the copies of everything.
All right. Are there any motions at this time?
I motion that we would adjourn the CIC meeting at 5:57 p.m.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with regard to that motion?
No.
Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for a vote.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wallett?
Yes.
Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Morvick?
Yes.
And yes.
All right, we are 5:57. We are adjourned.
Okay, it's 6:01 Verizon time. It's time to start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, February 13th, 2024. Roll call.
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Wallett?
Here.
And in need of his executive session.
Yes, Board, I would recommend a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation, and with 121.22G8, to consider confidential information relating to specific business strategy and to discuss negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance.
I motion that we would go into executive sessions for the reasons detailed by Administrator Weckbach.
I'll second that.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wallett?
Yes.
Okay, we'll be back. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, Verizon time. Roll call.
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Wallett?
Here.
And Mr. Wedbach, is there anything to report from executive session?
Nothing to report.
Okay, and there's nothing to report, and let's say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for our moment of meditation, it was a beautiful thing Sunday morning, getting the news, and Colerain Township was presented in a beautiful way. It was for Kylie's fight for cancer, and it just showed how our community can come out and support people in a bad way. And it was a success, and we pray for Kylie's health. But with the spirit of being Valentine's week, let our hearts be filled and do something heartfelt for somebody. Thank you. And we go to Mr. Baker, approval of minutes.
Thank you, Board. I would ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting that was held on January 23rd, 2024.
I motion that we approve the minutes of the January 23rd, 2024 trustee meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussions?
None from me.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wallett?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Okay.
Thank you, Board. The first two items on the agenda tonight are going to be presentations by Chief Alan Walls.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening to the board,
Good evening.
those of you in attendance and those of you watching virtually. I'm here tonight, first of all, to introduce and administer the oath of office to our newest career firefighter, Patrick Murray. Patrick, would you come forward and stand right here, please? Face the crowd. Patrick graduated from Roger Bacon High School, attended UC for about a year where he was a biology major. I did the same thing. Somehow we found our way into the fire service. Other than I went to Ball State. Started out as a volunteer at the Green Hills Fire Department. He also works part-time for Mount Healthy. He was a graduate of the Colerain recruit class, and he will be pinned tonight by his girlfriend, and I'm going to get this right, Kirsten Vagley. At this time, I'd like Patrick to introduce your family and friends.
Privileged, honored, blessed here to have Kirsten here, and then my father Dan, my sister Jocelyn, my brothers William and Chris.
Thank you. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Patrick Murray,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution
to uphold the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
I will abide by the Colerain Fire EMS
the Colerain Fire EMS,
mission statement,
mission statement,
values,
values,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
standard operating guidelines,
standard operating guidelines,
and the township's policies and procedures.
and the township's policies and procedures.
I'll faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter paramedic
I'll faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter paramedic
in the Fort Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
and State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you, and welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Board. And the next item is also going to be introduced by Alan, but while he's finishing up paperwork, this is an exciting moment for our department. This is a year, or not a year's, but an entire career's worth of service that we get to recognize tonight in the form of Steve Lawson as he retires from our community.
That's correct. So at this time, we have a retirement proclamation for firefighter EMT Steve Lawson. Steve, would you come forward, please? Steve has spent 31 and a half years of service here in Colerain Township. He started in 1992 and retired on Christmas Eve of 2023. He's been a firefighter EMT, a lieutenant. At one point, you were my lieutenant. In fact, we were just talking about 15 minutes ago about you giving me an evaluation at one of the fire stations. A captain, and he also serves as the fire chief in Mount Healthy. So he'll be wrapping up his career there in about 4 years. Altogether in the fire service, just shy of 39 years. I believe that Dan has it. Okay.
Go ahead.
At this point, we will first have you introduce your family and friends.
I have my mom, my brother, my wife, my oldest daughter Brandy, or Stevie, my mother, Brandy, her husband, Dan, and Olivia, and
All right, we'll have you turn and face them, and they'll read the proclamation.
Hello, Steve. It's a big day for you. Proclamation for firefighter EMT Steve Lawson for his years of dedicated service to Colerain Township, Ohio. Whereas firefighter EMT Steve Lawson was hired on June 9th of 1992 as an employee of the Colerain Township Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services, and whereas firefighter EMT Steve Lawson has demonstrated professionalism, allegiance, service, commitment, and excellence through his contributions as a firefighter, emergency medical technician, lieutenant, captain, leader, mentor, colleague, and friend during his tenure with the department. And whereas firefighter EMT Steve Lawson retired on December 24th of 2023 after 31 and a half years of commendable dedication to providing fire protection, emergency medical, and community risk reduction services to the Colerain Township community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees recognizes firefighter EMT Steve Lawson as an outstanding employee and that he contributed greatly to our community during his long public service tenure. Be it further resolved that in recognition of all that firefighter EMT Steve Lawson has done for Colerain Township, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees hereby proclaim Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, as a special day of recognition for Steve Lawson to acknowledge his contributions to our community and wish him continued success in retirement. I would motion that we would approve this proclamation.
I'll proudly second.
Congratulations. I think I've said all I want to say, and congratulations for living with so many different trustees over the last 31 years. I always wondered why anybody would work for an elected board, but here you are. So
Sometimes thank yous just aren't enough to share all the dedication with your family. I see, is that your granddaughter with your hat proudly displaying? It's the families, the on-calls, everything you guys do for us and the township. We're proud to have you for all those years.
And I'll just echo what everyone else has said. I can't imagine over 31 and a half years the number of lives that you've positively impacted. Often it's some of people's most, I guess, the worst times sometimes. And I thank you so much for being the person that's mentally tough enough to do that and to change people's lives. That means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just quickly, the loyalty and commitment you've shown to the residents of Colerain is commendable, and it's going to be missed. And anybody that sticks around for 3+ decades is hard to find in today's day and age.
Absolutely.
And so I know we appreciate that, as do all those folks, like Matt said, that you've helped along the way and that will be able to then continue to help others because of the things that you've done. So thank you.
no other
We
discussion
appreciate you.
from me.
Okay.
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, she has got to get in with her hat in there. It's time for a family picture, yes. Oh, God love you. Yeah.
Kathy, here's the next one.
Oh, okay.
That's for Should we stand behind these people?
Should we stand?
Yep. And thank you to your family, too, for sharing you with us all these many years.
Now you get him all to yourself. Welcome to retirement.
All right, thank you, Board. The last item of presentations tonight is a proclamation recognizing Elder Stephen Brown for years of service to Abundant Life Ministries. This is a group that's been in our community for over 40+ years, with Elder Stephen Brown serving as their pastor throughout that timeline. And so I believe one of you all have the proclamation to read.
Okay. Whereas Elder Stephen F. Brown founded the Ministry of Abundant Life Fellowship on April 26, 1981, and has faithfully devoted his prayers, time, and leadership to serve as a senior pastor and elder for 43 years. And whereas Elder Stephen F. Brown has worked in Colerain Township for 43 years and has been an upright and contributing citizen to his community. And whereas Elder Stephen F. Brown has served his family well as a husband to his wife of 54 years and as a father to 4 children and grandfather to 19 grandchildren. And whereas Elder Stephen F. Brown has labored faithfully to lead and teach his community, be it resolved that in recognition of Elder Stephen F. Brown, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees hereby proclaim Friday, April 26, 2024, is a special day of recognition for Elder Stephen F. Brown to acknowledge his contributions to the ministry of Abundant Life Faith Fellowship and residents of Colerain Township.
And I would motion that we would approve that.
We got to sign it?
I motion that we would approve that.
Yes?
I'll second.
And I would comment that, as I've said many times, it's the ministry that is going to save society. It's not government. It's got to be, people have to get God back in their lives, and that's what's going to get our society on a better path. It's carried us for thousands of years, and I would like to thank Stephen Brown for his years and years of service, and it means a lot.
Yes, when I saw prayers are always welcome and helpful.
And I just will echo, again, I'll just piggyback onto what the others have said. I don't know what's more impressive. Working for 43 years, founding the church, being married for 54 years, or having 19 grandchildren.
That's why I said 19. I was like, whoo.
That's
Christmas.
That's a man that certainly has changed a lot of lives as well, and has carried God's word to many, many people, and that's very appreciated. That's spiritual healing is the most important. It starts with that, and to have somebody that devoted is just humbling.
I have no other comments.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. Unger's going to sign this, and we'll give it to you, and then we'll get a picture, and then we got to file it. Copy, right. We'll give this to you so you can get your picture taken. Like, it makes a big difference, right? With
And Jeff will need to make a copy of
Yes,
that.
we just
before
said that.
leave with it.
Okay. So we'll stand up?
Yeah, sure.
And could you tell us your name, please? I'm Beverly Lathan, one of the members of the church. Okay, just wanted to let for the record. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly.
And individuals are welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, or if not, this would be a great opportunity to duck out, so.
Look at the crowds roll. Go.
I think we'll probably have to wait till Jeff comes back in. I will look and make sure there's no other.
Okay. Oh, thanks. I don't see him. No more? Okay.
That's a life choice you made. You're the one who decided to.
No football comments from you guys today, huh?
It's the first time in my life I cheered for the 49ers.
Okay,
Me too.
okay, nobody said anything, didn't want to make it go by without the football
For those
comment.
watching at home, we're waiting for our fiscal officer should return momentarily.
Did Kelsey get fined for bumping his coach? Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden, he came up there, what? I thought, wow. Okay, Mr. Baker's coming in now. Thank you again for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, now that Mr. Baker is back, we can start the citizens' address. And we have one, if anybody else did not sign one, we have Ned Heger Brem. And I know who you are because your shirt.
Exactly.
Yes.
There we go.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm just reflecting that when I first started coming to these meetings,
Ned, microphone.
when I first started coming to these meetings, the font got to be a lot smaller on this piece of paper. I'm like, can I actually read this? Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Ned Heger-Brim. I'm the manager of the Groesbeck Branch Library. I wanted to come tonight to thank Colerain Township for making your Groesbeck Branch Library the busiest library branch in Cincinnati and Hamilton County in 2023. I know, good job. But I also want to just take a moment to make a plug for the library. So I want to encourage everybody who is not already to make 2024 the year you take advantage of all the library has to offer. Come by the Groesbeck Branch Library and check some books out. We did get beaten by 4 unnamed suburban East Side branches in total book checkouts in 2023, and I would love to show some West Side pride and change that over to go higher in those ranks. But every other metric, we were number 1. If you aren't using our digital collections, you are missing out. I just checked today, and through our Libby app alone, you have access to 150,000 ebooks, 65,000 e-audiobooks, and 5,000 e-magazines, all for free. So if you're out there paying for Kindle ebooks, please save some money and check them out from your library instead. If the students in your family aren't using EBSCOhost ProQuest or Opposing Viewpoints, or many of the other databases we have for their homework, they should be. And I'll make a plug for 2 I particularly like, which is 1, free graphical access to Consumer Reports magazine. I think that dates me that I like to read Consumer Reports magazine. And verified business and residential phone lookup through Reference Solutions. There's just great databases on the library's website, and everybody has access to them. If you're a crafter, come by Groesbeck on the 2nd Monday of every month at 6 p.m. to join our Work in Progress group, where they get together, drink tea, and work on whatever craft they might be interested in working on. If you need some relaxation, join our Coloring for Adults group the 2nd Saturday of each month. And if you'd like to join a book club or run your own book club, we're your connection. There are so many book clubs out in the community, and I sometimes tell people that gives me great faith in the hope for civilization, that there are people that are getting together to talk about books. I think that's a good sign. We are currently in the middle of doing free tax preparation at the library, but when I checked today, there are only a few spots remaining. So if you missed out this year, make a mental note to grab a spot next January, because you can save some money having your taxes done. It's available to anybody under $79,000 in annual income or over the age of 55. They do it at our North Central branch here at Groesbeck, Harrison, downtown. It's a really great service, and it saves people a lot of money. Please do remember and pass the word that we provide a free hot meal every day at 3:15 for everyone 18 and under through the school year, and then at lunch during the summer. Lastly, this message goes out to all the babies, toddlers, and preschoolers who may be tuning in at home on Waycross Media. Do we have some fun story times for you? Library Babies every Monday morning, Family Story Time every Tuesday morning for the more traditional story timers, Movers and Shakers for the very active children on Wednesday mornings, Library Playdate for a little bit of socialization on Thursday mornings, and they're all at 10:15, no registration needed. If you're aged 8 or younger and need some help winding down before bedtime, or you're a parent who needs help winding a youngster down before bedtime, join Miss Claire via Zoom every Thursday night for a special virtual bedtime story time that she does. Awesome. So thank you so much, and thank you for using your Groesbeck Library. and I really appreciate us being number one.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Oh, I love when you come. Okay, no more citizens address? So now we move on to administrative reports.
Thank you, Board. And while I pull up administrative reports, I will ask Chief Alan Walls to come to the podium for the first report.
Good evening again.
Welcome back, Chief.
Thank you. Seems like it's only been a minute. Emergency incident activity for January 2024. There were 868 EMS incidents. There were 184 fire incidents. We made 42 responses into the Springfield Township Pleasant Run EMS contract area. We had 1 response into the West College Hill Golfway EMS contract area. Significant building fires, the 2300 block of Galbraith Road with a $150,000 loss. Last month, in my absence, Chief Packer apprised the board of that particular incident with those rescues and the events of that evening. Another significant fire in the 11,900 block of Hamilton Avenue that was a $21,000 loss, and the 11,800 block of Lick Road with a $35,000 loss. Property loss for the month of January was $206,000. Property value saved was $1.1 million with an 84.73% save rate. Average response time for the arrival of the first unit was 5 minutes and 6 seconds. And first unit on the scene, less than 6 minutes, was 69.96%. And that's my report for January of 2024.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, the next report will come from the Police Department with Chief Ed Cordy.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, hello.
All right, for January, the police department responded to 3,818 calls for service. That's 123 calls per day, which is a 4% increase over last year in January. For the month, we conducted 364 traffic stops, handled 117 crash reports, made 8 OVI arrests. In general, we made 90 arrests, conducted 133 vacation checks. We had 4 uses of force, being 1 takedown, 2 usages of our pepper ball launcher, and 1 tasing. No vehicle pursuit, and 1 internal investigation was opened. For the month, our busiest days of the week were Monday and Wednesday, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 11 p.m., majority of the day. And of course, again, 6 a.m. for some reason. Code enforcement for the month, we're looking at 55 total violations, 372 inspections, 27 violations closed, 2 total abatements. We registered over 200 properties for the rental registry program. We had 2 property maintenance violations. Our environmental crimes unit of Officer Boyd and Bolt dealt with 3 littering complaints, 21 abandoned vehicles, 19 parking complaints, 9 solicitors, and interacted with the public on 52 different occasions. Impact stats just for the month of January, they conducted 81 stops. They signed 9 felony charges, 11 misdemeanor charges, closed 18 felony warrants, 17 misdemeanor warrants, and 23 traffic warrants, and attempted to locate 23 wanted subjects. For their seizures for the month, 117 grams of marijuana, 29.8 grams of meth, 12 grams of mushrooms, 3 grams of heroin. They towed 19 vehicles and had 12 canine deployments, all while assisting the road units with 101 details. Our current staffing is the same as it was last month. We're looking at 62 officers, with 2 being police cadets in training currently. Our 60th officer that is not one of the 2 cadets will be starting in the next couple weeks. Okay. So that's where we are from there. Any questions from the board?
No, but thank you for the hard work, and I love you sharing the impact team results. It makes a difference.
Great.
So people stop running red lights and speeding. Get out there.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for all
Thank
your
you,
hard
Chief.
work.
Thank you. The next report is the Public Services Report, which will be delivered by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Okay, on the public services dashboard for January, our visitors for parks in January for the month totaled 16,426. Now, these are just vehicles coming into the park. This doesn't account for foot traffic or other modes of transportation into the park, nor does it account for how many passengers are in the vehicles. So we can definitely raise those numbers if we're looking at people. Heritage Park continues to be the park that attracts the most visitors over the 3-year look-back period. And then the next statistic, our bags of litter that were collected are once again exceeding our target with a total of 58 bags for the month. This also includes items that aren't collected in the bags, such as sofas, refrigerators, tires, shopping carts, and whatnot. So litter crew, again, doing a great job for us. Any questions from the board?
And if anyone did want to see that information that is available on this report, you just have to click into it and then change the filter, and then you could see the number of tires, number of shopping carts, that sort of thing.
And thank you for your assist to that mattress on Dry Ridge.
Thank you.
The litter crew did all the work, so
I
don't
know, I
thank
want to
me.
say the litter crew, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, up next is Development Director David Miller.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For development, our zoning certificates for the month of January, we had a total of 37, so it was up a little bit from December, was slow at 25. We had 2 BZA cases and none in zoning commission. This coming month, we're going to have, for February, we have 5 BZA cases scheduled and a couple in the zoning commission. Applications for January, high number was 18. It was just a variety of zoning certificates, primarily residential. We had 16 commercial certificates that were issued, and then we had 3 new homes that we issued new build for that. So, that's all I've got. Any questions? Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Board. And to conclude administrative reports, just an update on overall township business. This is the time of year when our department directors are working hard to get their strategic plan items ready to go and ready for review. And so they've been working hard on those initiatives to get them set so that we've got milestones throughout the year and over the next 3-year period to really fully engage and enact the strategic plan as you all have identified. I did want to address a few other points, mainly related to some information that I've seen out there. So one is an update on the fire stations. As you've probably seen if you've driven past Station 102 or 26, we've had a lot of dirt being moved. We've had piers actually drilled down at 102 to secure that foundation and the footings in place there. And we continue to take the approach to maximize economies of scales on the project, where we will have the crews at one station site, so they usually start with Station 102, and then once they finish a job there, they then move down to the Station 26 property, so that we keep those individuals here. Meeting with the contractor today, we're anticipating that we're going to start to see beams and such that will start being erected vertically in April. So we're on pace for that to happen, and once those are in place and we get a roof on those buildings, then they're able to really work sort of around the clock. I did want to note quickly, when it does come to Station 26, there are still some items left in the construction area related to the football field that was there. We have been in communications with them to let them know that should they accept the terms of an agreement that was provided by St. Anne's, that our fire chief and several of the team members are willing in their own time off shift to actually help move those poles over for them. But there may come a point in this project where if we don't have an agreement and a place to move those, that we have to consider scrapping those in order to move forward with the project fully. I see a question, Matt.
Yeah, so we do, St. Anne's does have an agreement with them.
St. Anne's provided an agreement to Colerain Youth Football. This was in November of 2023. My understanding is, despite all of us working collaboratively on that draft, that it has not been signed yet. So I'm not sure what is going on there, but that's not it's not an agreement that involves us, so that's between those parties.
And are we aware, is there a rent on this agreement?
It is free use of the space. So it's a 3-acre site that is directly behind our baseball fields on Groesbeck Park. You can see it very clearly from where the old field was.
Well, thank you so much for working through that. I know that you and Chief Walls especially was concerned that we get that. So hopefully they'll sign it and we can
Chief
move on.
Walls has been extremely committed to this project and been extremely committed to helping find a home for these kids for their practices. And so, I mean, he's done a yeoman's amount of work on that, and I really appreciate the stick-to-itiveness that he has had throughout that. So it's shown by getting where we said we were going to be, and that agreement, we had a copy of that shared with us back in November. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to highlight quickly, I know that there's been some questions about gas bills, electric bills, and things like that. We are in the winter months, and so there certainly are fluctuations that all of us see as we are using more of our gas and electric to heat our homes. There was an item that we put out on Circle that really explains our aggregation program, and so I'm happy to answer any questions on that. But currently, our aggregation program is set for the next 2 years for gas and electric. Those rates were locked in. However, anyone is free to opt out of our program at any time. And if you opt out without entering into an aggregation contract with a separate entity, you would be subject to market fluctuations. So, for example, if you live in a community that does not have aggregation and does not have a flat fixed fee, in the winter months, we tend to see the gas rates spike up for Duke's supply, and that's because more people are using gas, so it costs more for them because the supply is not as high as the demand is. Now, on the flip side of that, in the summer months, gas costs are lower for Duke, and so those are things to keep in mind if somebody does opt out, but it's free to opt out of ours. There's been some information out there about a civic grant as well, so I did some research into that. And looking at the contract that was offered to the township, the contract had a rate. This was from 2020 to 2023. The negotiated rate that was offered to the township was 4.99 cents per kilowatt hour. It does not state in the agreement anywhere that if the township were to decline the civic grant, that it would drop to 4.94. It does not state anywhere in the agreement that if the township were to accept it, that it would increase to 5.04. It simply states that the price is 4.99 cents, and the township would then have the ability to receive a grant in exchange for that. Looking back at prior iterations of contracts, this language was actually in the electric aggregation program dating all the way back to 2012. So in 2012, it appeared that the township assistant administrator at the time, because I don't believe we had an administrator for the township in that moment, had negotiated a reduction in the cost and a civic grant at that time. Now, I do not know what logic went into that, why that was put in place, but that civic grant was in place from February 15th, 2012, all the way through May 1st of 2023. So when we renegotiated our aggregation this past go-around, that was not something that was anywhere on any agreements offered by Dynegy as part of these proposals. And so, as such, we entered into an agreement with them that does not have that anymore. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that any of you all have on that topic.
On the aggregation, I just have two quick questions. So even 2020, the aggregation contract, and then the one that we recently signed, it's we put a request for proposals, right? So it's lowest.
Yes, so Energy Alliances is a third-party broker that we utilize, and they go out to the market and they watch it as it ebbs and flows, because depending on the moment in time, like we were talking about earlier with how gas rates fluctuate, if we're trying to negotiate a new gas rate in January, we're probably going to get a really bad gas rate. The best time to negotiate that would be, or to seek bids, would be in the summer. And so they're constantly watching that market ebb and flow. And typically, rates are only good for a 24-hour timeline, because the next day, the energy market, the consumption rates are all different. And so these models get updated on a daily basis. Interestingly enough, from talking to them, this was several months ago, Duke Energy, for most of their supply for electric, they actually do 2 bid processes throughout the year, and they use that to help justify and move their needle. Their first bids that came in this past November, I believe, were around 11 cents per kilowatt hour, which is far more than our 8 cents that we currently have on the program. Now, They may have gotten lower rates if they did their second tranche in, say, January when electric use is lower, but that's just for some healthy perspective because this stuff is very nuanced when it comes to
And I've
aggregation.
been asked a number of times why we do a request for bids on aggregation, and this is something the voters decided.
Yes.
So it's not optional on us to say, all right, we're not going to do it this year. We have to provide.
So there was a ballot referendum. I can't tell you the exact date that occurred for both these programs to exist, and so they've been offered. And something that this board has been pretty clear with in my time here at the township is ensuring that any aggregation contract we have provides an opt-out clause that will not penalize our residents. And I say that because we put out pieces about some of the potential, I won't necessarily call it a scam, but some potential folks out there that are trying to take advantage of you by giving you a very, very low introductory rate only to have that increase in, say, month 6. And then you have a huge penalty if you want to opt out at that point. And so we wanted to make sure that anyone could leave our program at any time without any cost to them. Looking back at the most recent 4-year time frame, so this was 2020 to 2023, the electric aggregation program saved every household that was on it in Colerain an average of $170 per household. So, and that's compared to Duke Energy's rate that ebbs and flows on a month.
And that was, thank you for Helen to put that PR piece out.
Yes, she
did
a
an awesome
great
job putting
pulling all these facts together.
And there is a permanent opt-out too, right?
There is a permanent opt-out on one of the two. I can't remember which it is, but if you wanted to opt out, you would be more than welcome to give Energy Alliances a call. If you bear with me just a moment, I'll pull up that number so I could read it into the record. But it is almost there. So it is 513-794-5555. Also, if you do have questions, we will try to answer them as best as we can at our front desk, but you can also call that number to have some of your questions answered as well. So,
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
You got anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, I guess we'll go to the trustee report. I'll go first, real short.
Sure, go ahead, Kathy.
We want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. We don't know who's pinker today, me or Jeff. So, anyway, but keep up the positive vibes. Tonight, Ned, thank you for all that you do and the positivity you bring. It's wonderful to hear everything that the library has to offer, and I hope people pick up on that. And thanks to everybody that had great reports, and it just was a great week. So that's all I have to say. Continue on.
You can go, Matt.
Sure. Not much of a report. Just thank you to all the staff, all the department heads, the entire team at Colerain Township. You know, I'd mentioned to somebody earlier in the day that we have like a dream team, and I really believe we do, that their skills really work together well. So thank you so much for everything everybody does that works for Colerain, all the volunteers that volunteer for Colerain Township as well, and that's really all I have.
Thank you, Matt. I'll address your comments on the cost of electric and gas, and as I've said so many times, that problem starts at the federal level. I'm one of the three of us. I think we have a horrible national energy policy, and as a country, we need to use all of our different resources that are available and balance it out between them and keep energy affordable, and that goes with gasoline and diesel and anything else, so that the average person can afford to get around places. And it's just way skewed right now due to some national policy decisions. Sometimes when you watch these meetings and you hear us go through our nuisances and abatements, and you wonder what happens and why does it take so long to do these things, it's because we follow the law, but it eventually does come to a point where the properties are left and they deteriorate. And there's one on Laura Linda at 9854, which there's another one over there, but eventually those end up at the Hamilton County Sheriff's sale. And I've mentioned this earlier, but 9854 Laura Linda will be sold tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and to get in that sale, and none of us are going, and I have no interest in it, but eventually that's where they end up at, is outside of room 260 down at the courthouse. And it takes us a long time to go through the legal process. and hopefully at that point, we'll get paid anything we are owed assessments we've made against that property. We will get paid at closing. Sometimes it just takes a long time. I always give out my phone number, and here it comes again, 404-3057, but I got a really good, interesting call, which they all are. But over on Compton Road, right at the line when you leave Colerain Township, there's a piece of property that's been there vacant forever, and it's being developed into a place called Angel's Castle. And that development is right on, it's in Springfield Township, but it comes right up to the back line of many of our residents that are on Orangewood. And there's a guardrail over there at the end of Chopin, and what I've come to find out about it is they're just using that as a temporary construction entrance, and that guardrail will go back up. But I've been over there numerous times. I stopped by yesterday, and hopefully the people going in and out of there are keeping it clean. That project is in Springfield Township. It just happens to immediately back up to, within 2 feet, literally 2 feet of a surveyor's line of where Colerain Township ends at. Earlier in the evening, we had a Community Improvement Corporation meeting, and I would just like to remind any young people or anybody that's in Scouts or in grade school or high school and needs to attend a government meeting, we welcome you here. One of Mr. Wallert's students came by, and there was a scout from one of the local scout troops here, and they were here for our C.I.C. meeting, which we discussed the topics before the Community Improvement Corporation Board. So I would like to invite any young people that need to do this for school or for a scouting advancement to please consider coming to our meetings. Last Thursday, I took a day from my day job and took myself up to the Ohio Township Association event in Columbus, and I took 2 classes, one on qualified immunity, which is what many of us have, but it was more geared towards qualified immunity for police. And I will tell you, our police are put in some pretty impossible situations a lot of the time, and it's very important that they have that qualified immunity, and there was 2 attorneys that gave a presentation on it. I found it to be quite interesting, and there was also another presentation I attended for JEDS, and there's a little town called Galea, Ohio, and the township out there backs right up to the city limit, and the farmer who has the contiguous property line with the city sold his 40 acres. There's a big warehouse being built there, and now that property is being developed and improved, the city wants to absorb it, and the neighbors behind it don't want that to happen. So it's very interesting, and I try to get the continuing education that I can from these things, and so I enjoyed my time at the Township Association. I also attended the general session earlier in the day, and I'll save my other comments for items as they come up. So thank you.
Thank you. So on to new business.
Yes, so the first item of new business is an update from Chief Alan Walls on the motor vehicle crash billing conversation that we started a couple of months ago.
Good evening once again. So back in November, we had what I guess I would describe as a very brief or shallow conversation on motor vehicle crash billing. So tonight I want to provide some depth with some additional information that we have. So with motor vehicle crash billing, we would have the following objectives. Recover costs associated with those motor vehicle crashes, secure an alternative funding model for services provided, which is what we do with EMS billing as well, and then use that as an alternative to funding capital projects such as equipment and apparatus replacement. What would the process look like? We, the administrative staff at Fire Headquarters, would recommend to the board a level of rates that would be approved by you. So for an example, there could be a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. A level 1 may be just a motor vehicle crash with assessment and stabilization of the vehicle. A level 2 would be a motor vehicle crash with fluid cleanup, and a level 3 may be, say, a vehicle fire. As an example, in Naperville, Illinois, those rates are $525 for a level 1, $575 for a level 2, and then $700 for a level 3. Much the same as EMS billing, there is no hard billing. It's soft billing of residents and non-residents, insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and in this case, auto insurance. My recommendation would be it be non-residents. The reason being, we have a number of roads throughout the township, interstate highways, regional highways, and state highways where a number of individuals outside of the township are traveling and therefore using residents' resources. Fire Recovery USA would be who we would recommend as the billing agency. They only get paid when we are paid, and they take 22% of the cost. It's estimated that if we billed everyone, not what I'm recommending, conservatively, we would generate somewhere between $175,000 and $225,000 by billing non-residents. What I would recommend, we would generate conservatively somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 a year. So, as an aside, with EMS billing, oftentimes there's some consternation when a resident receives an EOB or an estimate or estimation of billing. They oftentimes think that that is a bill when in fact it's not. It's just an estimate of what their insurance company will pay. So be it residents or non-residents, we don't hard bill them. It only goes to the insurance company. So with that then, and looking for some direction, what would be the next steps? And for me, the next steps would be, if you want us to pursue it, we would look at what those levels would be it 1, 2, or 3, what the cost would be associated, and we likewise could itemize some things within those levels. Let's say, for instance, with the vehicle fire, if we had to deploy a electric vehicle blanket, we could itemize that and bill for the replacement of that. So just kind of an example of some of the things that we could do.
And so I think next steps here is that we would bring forward a contract likely that would have those rates set in that. So any policy perspective that you all can provide on if you have rates in mind, or if you have a policy perspective on resident versus non-resident, to add to that conversation. One of the nuances here, right, is that our residents, through their property tax bills, are paying for these services directly. A non-resident does not. Whereas if you are in other communities, such as cities in Ohio that have income taxes, you may be paying that through income taxes. And so that's a little different and nuanced here because we're not capturing any of that. But we, because of our highway system, do see some large-scale costs from motorists just bypassing Colerain.
My inclination would be to bill non-residents because the residents are already paying for this.
I like that idea too.
And I work outside of Colerain, and I've worked in the city of Cincinnati, and I paid that income tax down there, and so I don't see it as an issue to bill non-residents. I don't want to bill residents.
And that's my recommendation, non-residents.
I like that too. I got a call from somebody after an accident in front of their house, and there was a lot of debris. And who's responsible and whose payment? Is that part of this payment? Because they had to move large pieces and there's glass. Nobody really came and cleaned it up. Who's responsible and who would get billed for something like that?
So typically, we could bill for that, but generally speaking, when it comes to debris, that's going to be the towing and recovery vehicle operator who's picking that up.
And if they don't, our trash guys have to go out.
Well, if they don't, then it would fall to whatever jurisdiction has responsibility for the road, right?
Well,
so
I just
if
got a
that's
call.
Hamilton County,
Yeah.
Colerain Township,
It was Colerain
ODOT,
Township, and yeah.
and then we're at the mercy of their hours, right? So if the crash happens at midnight, our folks aren't working
Right,
at midnight.
right.
So
It was a
yeah.
night crash and there was a lot of debris.
And I can only speak, for me. Y'all know that I work part-time as a paramedic just to the west of here on occasion. I just had a broom in my hand on Interstate 74 about a month ago, cleaning up debris on the roadway. We
Thank
try
you.
to be very diligent about that because we don't want to cause additional crashes or damage other vehicles.
Right.
So hopefully that wasn't here in the township.
I agree with the non-resident assessment. I do think since we have an interstate, there needs to be some thought as to, I don't know, throw something out random, a truckload of chickens, flies, something that's way beyond 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, and something that we do already, so a hazardous materials incident.
I didn't want to go there, but that's what I was really thinking.
We already bill trucking companies directly for that, for replacement of damaged equipment or the things that we need to mitigate that situation. So not only would that be some level of cost recovery for the crash itself, but we would also itemize and bill for the mitigation of the hazmat aspect of things.
Okay.
So that is something that we could do.
You did make a comment, and this is a little bit off, but it's not that often that you get to ask the fire chief a question. You mentioned something about putting out electrical vehicle fires. Have we done that yet?
We have not, but I can tell you that when we do, I don't think it's a matter of if. When we do, they're very challenging. And in fact, you can expend 20 or 30,000 gallons of water on an electric vehicle fire to extinguish it, or we can use a blanket and cover it and to a certain degree smother it out. So
So if
options.
anybody is interested, there was actually a news story about our Colerain team offering training about this. I'm looking at it right now. About a year ago, we were highlighted by a news media station for some trainings that we've offered despite not having to do it just yet.
So would we bill with the excess that you just talked about the water putting out? Is that something that's another billable 2 or 3 level?
Generally, we wouldn't bill for water used, but if we were to pull that blanket.
I just
or
didn't know if we had had that experience yet. I realize those are going to come up under junk cars one of these days, and I hesitate to. We'll have to have a policy discussion of what to do with electric cars. I don't know if I want a junk electric car in our impound lot.
Yeah, I don't believe it's a matter of if we're going to be dealing with that. It's a matter of when.
Thank you for being ready.
I think that provides us with the policy direction we need. So next steps, when we're able to get a contract ready for you all to consider, you'll see that on a future trustee meeting agenda for consideration and adoption.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time on that.
Looking into that for us.
Thank you, Alan. The next few items will be presented by Police Chief Ed Cordy.
Welcome back, Chief.
Item B is a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement.
Ed, sorry.
Item B is resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at the following properties: 8439 Colerain Avenue, 9690 Colerain Avenue, 2782 Hazelton Court, 2955 Jack Frost Way, 10266 Pottinger Road, 3323 West Galbraith Road, and recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll move to adopt the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at 8439 Colerain Avenue, 9690 Colerain Avenue, 2782 Hazelton Court, 2955 Jack Frost Way, 10266 Pottinger Road, and 3323 West Galbraith Road, with the parcel numbers as indicated in the meeting packet.
I'll second.
No discussion from me.
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, item C is a resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2415 Lynn Fork Avenue. At this address, there is a 2017 white Volvo S60 with no plate. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2415 Lynn Fork Avenue.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
None.
None?
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item D is a resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2786 Rumford Court. At this address, there is a 2007 orange Ford Edge. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll move to adopt the resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2786 Rumford Court, Cincinnati, Ohio 45251, and a 2007 orange Ford Edge.
I will second it.
Any discussions?
None.
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And lastly, item E, the resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 9661 Week Road. At this address is a 2004 black Hummer H2. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 9661 Week Road, a 2004 Hummer.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
None.
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
It's probably our first one of those, isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, a Hummer, I'm going, what, I'm thinking, wow, that's a pretty,
And I will briefly just comment, we have had internal conversations about a wrecked vehicle with an electric vehicle, and what are we gonna do with that? And not putting it at our impound lot for the obvious reason of what it can do and how hard it will be to be able to put out. And our current answer and only answer is it will be going back to the towing company's lot.
Oh, okay.
So we have agreements in place that allows for storage at their lot in secured areas, and that's where it would be going.
Good, good.
All right.
Thank you, Chief.
The next item will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Welcome back, Ms. Mays.
Hello, Board. Okay, the only item under Public Services is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with AFSCME Labor Union. This information can be found on page 25 of your packets. This memorandum of understanding, or an MOU for short, updates the original language regarding Article 21 longevity to better define the eligibility requirements for staff to receive longevity pay. As it stands without the MOU, the language is very broad and it does not address specific requirements, which has created confusion for staff. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding, Article 21 longevity pay.
I'll second.
And what this does is just clarifies, which is why it's called a memorandum of understanding.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your work on that.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. I'll leave the copy with,
Okay, okay. Jeff.
All right, the next item of new business tonight will be presented by David Miller, our Development Director.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Just two items here from development. One, you are likely familiar with, it's a moratorium that we are extending on the issuance of any new zoning certificates for commercial establishments that would sell or offer flavored cigarettes and vapes. And so there was legislation at the state level that had been discussed and debated and was going through committee a few years back, and that's when we started the moratorium to wait for what they were going to do so that we could make sure that we had the proper authority at the local level or needed to do anything. And so that has stalled. And so what we've continued to do is just place another moratorium extension for one more year. And so this past year in 2023, we were able to do a deep dive of our own and do a little study on the effects of these types of products on users, and I think that bolstered one of the rationale for passing the moratorium. And then secondly, what we were trying to do is just provide an extension so that our final language would be wrapped up in our new comprehensive zoning resolution that's under draft right now. And so, given that we don't have that new language finalized in the new zoning resolution, we're asking the board to pass one more year moratorium on these types of products, and that would preclude the Planning and Zoning Department from issuing certificates for those types of stores.
And David, to just clarify, because we've been undergoing the zoning update, the zoning commission will start to hear and see some of the new documents related to that in, is it February or
This next week.
next week? So that's going to start the process because it's such a big document that have changes here and there. It's planned to be a multi-month sort of review, section by section, to get through
Piecemealing
it.
that out for them.
But at the end of that process, which will likely be sometime this fall, there will be a resolution that will move forward to the board for consideration that should have the finalized language, so we don't have to adopt another one of these next year.
I'll motion to extend the moratorium on new establishments that primarily sell or distribute electronic smoking devices and/or vapor products within Colerain Township by 1 year.
I'll second. Any discussions?
Yes, as I've done in the past, those products are available at United Dairy Farmers and all sorts of other chains. I think the products are horrible. I think they are bad health choice. I don't believe in singling out, they're terrible. I don't have any use for them, but the other big chain stores are allowed to sell these things, and that's why I don't intend to support it. Let's see what happens when the zoning thing's wrapped up. This is probably the third or fourth, is this the third year we've done this? Yes, so terrible products. I don't recommend them, but all the other big chain stores are allowed to sell them. I don't know if the new UDF at Blue Rock and Springdale Blue Rock Connector is going to be selling them. That store's not open yet. And so that's my position on it. I completely respect the other trustees, what I perceive as their position on it, but as long as these other stores are selling this legal product, which is a terrible product, that's where I'm at on it.
This is something that I championed at the beginning. I just think that there's when you have a lot of these type of establishments, it tends to bring some side effects to the community that's just unwanted. And until we find out more, I'm fine with extending it a year.
I agree with you.
No other comments from me?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
No.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next item is a resolution that we're bringing to the board for a request for the zoning commission to draft text amendment related to group homes for children. And so, as you are likely aware, there have been some changes in how children that are juvenile delinquents are being cared for, not so much as often now in the larger institutional gatherings, but they're putting them in group homes. And so we have seen an influx of those in Colerain Township, and it has created a lot of extra work for primarily our police department as they are answering calls for service. It's been rather surprising just in a very short period of time, the influx that we have seen. And so given that our zoning resolution does not, we believe, based on what we have seen and working with the police and code enforcement, we don't believe that our current resolution provides for adequate regulation of these group homes. And so zoning text amendments can be initiated 3 different ways. One would be by a resolution by the Board of Trustees, and that's what this is. The other would be the zoning commission itself, or a third would be a citizen initiation. And so we clearly have the first option here. So if you choose to pass this resolution, then it would go to the zoning commission. They will then work with staff and we'll bring to them the draft of the language for the text amendment, and then once they make a recommendation of changing what's brought to them or recommend approval or denial, then it'll come back to you for final passage.
I motion that we approve the resolution to initiation to amend Colerain Township zoning resolution Article 7.4.13 group homes for children.
I'll second that.
A discussion. I don't know how much, can we approximate how many calls from our EMS services were at this particular?
So it varies by the group home. So there are certain group homes that we tend to not hear much from at all. And then there are others where we've seen a large volume of calls, not necessarily just EMS, but police. There are a few of them that have seen an excess of, several dozen calls for service, so much so that we're there every 3 or 4 days, it seems
Right,
like.
so it's very taxing to our police force.
It uses a lot of our resources, and yes.
And how are the incidences on our schools from these group homes? Is there?
You know, I don't have a lot of information on that.
I didn't,
There, but I know that, and that depends, because there may be circumstances where some of these children may be participants of the virtual academy. And if they're in the virtual academy, they wouldn't necessarily be in the Northwest School District or the Mount Healthy School District for that matter, depending on where the home is located. So.
I didn't know if our zoning was going to contact any of the schools to see if they would like any litigation within our resolution here.
So, one, I don't know that we could speak to the school district
Okay.
piece in our documents, but we have been actively working with the state on a few of our group homes, and our school district has been at the table for at least one of those meetings, and they will continue to be at the table for those conversations.
And this is starting to be a very profitable business for people coming into our township to buy a house. And I think one of the houses has 10 children in it.
I cannot confirm how many are in any of these
that was one of the
homes,
estimates
but,
I heard, and they get how much per day?
Depending on the kid, I've been told, and I haven't seen any of the
we don't have
custodial
the-
contracts, which is where all that would be maintained, that some kids you can get upwards of $1,000 a day.
So we see this as a very profitable entity, people coming into our community, so we want to put our reins on it now.
We are aware that some of our group homes have had kids placed from out of state as well. Upstate New York, for example, we're aware of a couple of the group homes that have that. You know, there was, there have just been different circumstances that surround them, and ultimately these are all governed, while the state does have an arm, most of them are governed either through our local zoning and what rules we have in place through zoning, or by the individual contract that that group home facility has with each individual county JFS or Department of Youth Services. So they may have 20 different contracts on file, and they all have different rules and parameters that whether or not they're being enforced or not are not up to us, because that's not our enforcement role.
And therein lies the problem.
Right.
Is that it's not up to us to enforce because it's not within the realm of our enforcement. Yet, people are making upwards, and I don't have a problem with profit-driven enterprises, $1,000 a day per child, but you have to bring results. And not only is this costing a lot of upfront tax money for us to send police and EMS out, but my guess would be if we were able to do a longitudinal study of this, we would see that the recidivism rate from the kids that are in these homes is fairly high, and that again costs the taxpayers money at the end of this. So to me, it would be a different story if I had some actual success. But when I see an address with 102 runs, I mean, it's disgusting. And I know that there's been talk over how we should handle this, and if it doesn't work this route, we'll try another route. And I know that Mr. Unger and Chief and Lieutenant Penley have and yourself have done a fantastic job getting this data. But the idea that people are the idea that some other states' justice system for juveniles is overwhelmed, so they're gonna ship them to Colerain, and almost like a bounty. It's really kind of the whole thing's sickening to me. And I'm glad that we're, at least in our end, we're going to try to put an end to it. I don't see any winners in what's going on with this policy. And to hear that there are more people in line getting certificates, I'll try whatever I can to stop it.
The state of Ohio shared that they have seen double, so that they've had a number of applicants on file that are, certified homes, and they saw that number double over the past year in terms of applicants that are in the pipeline. So there are a lot of group homes that are currently in the pipeline at the state level that are working their way through the approval process.
I'd like to comment that the ones I'm familiar with, and this all started with a phone call, they are quite a drain on our resources that we need in other areas. And when we have the 2 or 3 officers down at one of these locations, that's 2 or 3 officers that are not out doing other things. And, as has been commented, some of these we've been there dozens and dozens of times. The whole bottom line on this is the kids that are there, they're going to get out because they're all juveniles, and they're liable to be let out when they're 18. And we want those kids to have a chance to turn their lives around and be successful in life. these homes, through lack of supervision or not enough supervision for the clients that are there, they're not providing the level of service that's needed. And this is really all about the children, having them have a chance to turn their lives around when they're in an environment where our police or fire see so much, kids going out the window at 11:30 at night and waiting cars and escaping. And we have to respond, and that means we're not somewhere else. And this will be a good tool for us to get to the end goal of getting some of these places straightened out so that they're providing the services that are needed for these kids. And if they can't provide it, there's another vendor somewhere else that can. And that said, we intend to. There's an appeals process too. If one of the group homes, and there's a group home in my neighborhood, it's not for children. It's for another classification of individuals. Besides a van going in and out of the neighborhood a couple times a week, you would never know they are there because it's a very well-run place. And while I disagree on putting these businesses in residential neighborhoods, there are success stories where they've been successful. There will be an appeals process for this, and at this time, it would come to if one of the owners of these businesses felt like they were not treated properly, they could come to our Board of Trustees for an appeal. I believe that our Code Enforcement Board, which we've recently established, and I'll ask you to comment on this, ultimately, that would be the appellate level for folks that wanted to be heard on it. But our goal, and I'm not speaking for Matt and Kathy, but they likely agree, is we want these kids to have a chance to turn their lives around, and they're just not getting that at this time in the places that have been the catalyst for this legislation.
Yep, and I think, Dan, you mentioned something that is related to another agenda item later on tonight, but this agenda item would really kick off the zoning, and so depending on what rules come forward from the zoning commission and should that be approved by you all at a later date, that would set some parameters, and then any group home would be able to go through either zone change process or Board of Zoning Appeals process, depending on what they felt was the best pathway forward to them if they did not agree with the zoning in place on their home. So that is something that would exist at that time after we conclude this process.
The purpose here is that these kids that need services get the proper services in the proper environment that they need. And if there's a vendor out there that's not providing those, this isn't designed to be punitive. This is designed to help encourage these people to get in compliance and all for a quality program. I have no other comments.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board. The next item of new business will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Third time's the charm. The item next on the agenda is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a grant agreement with SORTA for the Joseph Sidewalk Project. Information on this item can be found on page 37 of your packets. The Township was notified that the grant request from SORTA to install new sidewalks on Joseph Road between Colerain Avenue and Compton Road was approved. Attached is the draft agreement from SORTA. The township will be awarded $173,250 for the construction of the sidewalk. This is 50% of the construction costs for a total project estimate of $346,500. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
And to add some additional perspective, this is the second grant that we received for this project. So between the two grants, one with Hamilton County, that should cover the full cost of construction of these roads. And when it comes to the project itself, Branstetter Carroll has been hard at work on the plans. They just got us the plans to go out and seek right-of-way, so that's the next step for us. Right now, we're planning on having the public bids going out sometime this spring, with anticipated construction this summer, so that hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, early in the school year next year, sidewalks will be available for those students that are walking along Joseph Road.
Thank you.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute a grant agreement with SORTA for the Joseph Sidewalk Project.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
No, I think it's been well explained.
Yes. Thank you for doing all the hard work.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you, Board. Tonight, we have one item of old business, that is resolution modifying Resolution 109-22, regulating nuisance properties. This was first introduced to you all at our January 23rd, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have, but this would essentially modify our existing policy that regulates nuisance properties to include an additional clause for missing persons, runaway persons, AWOL persons, and we would, assuming that this takes effect, then move forward with that as part of this resolution. And I would recommend adoption.
I motion we approve the resolution updating the Colerain Township nuisance property resolution.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I think I've made a lot of my points previously.
Well, and this is for the missing persons. This is still under the discretion of our police also.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not so hardcore as people want to believe.
No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And the last items on the agenda are the consent items, and I'll read those for you. We have a new hire, that's a management analyst. It's a Christina Cabrera at $26 per hour. A new hire, bus driver, Thomas Botkin at $17.31 per hour. Promotion to full-time firefighter EMT of Cody Wright at $22.43 per hour. A contract with Stryker for equipment maintenance in the amount of $8,540. Contract with Buckeye Power for generator maintenance in the amount of $4,925. Contract with Deer Park for Station 25 roof repairs in the amount of $900. Contract with Deer Park for 4160 roof repairs in the amount of $2,678. Contract with the Land Reutilization Corp to allow us to do fire training at the Sears site for $0, and a contract with Winelco for our septic system maintenance at the training center for $300. And I would recommend adoption of all consent items.
I motion that we approve the consent items A through I.
I'll second.
Any discussions?
All this information and the dollar amounts are found in our agenda.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay.
Very briefly, Board, update on public records requests so far up through February 13th, which is today. We have received 62 public records requests, and we're working hard to get those out as soon as possible. The financials for January cannot be completed yet because the year end has to be done first. So when we have more information to share regarding that, we'll give it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is an executive session needed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. You want a motion to adjourn?
I will motion to adjourn.
I will second the motion at 8:19 p.m.
Okay, then you gotta,
Ms. Orich?
yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Then we will officially be adjourned at 8:19. Thank you for all for coming and viewing on TV.